So I was working on the Pantorouters and went to change router bits, and to tighten up the router bit into the collet, you use this shaft lock, right? And it engages this pin. Well, anyway, when I went to tighten it, this pin, spring loaded, it snapped. Little piece fell in the sawdust there somewhere. So I thought, well, I'll just use a couple of wrenches, and it's true you can get one wrench on this pretty easy, but this other one is kind of hard to get to because of the dust shroud, and it just doesn't engage correctly. So I thought, well, I can't use two wrenches from now on. I need to try to get that fixed. So I ended up ordering one of these pins. I actually ended up ordering two of them from eReplacement parts. I'll leave that link in the description and the part number. And let me show you how I repaired that. So to begin, I'm gonna take the motor loose, and it just requires a 7mm wrench on this little nut. Release that. And then a little Allen wrench to release these two screws. These are what hold the motor in place, right? Get that guy loose. I'll slip out the whole thing. And there's some little nubs on the housing here that you might have to rotate to correspond with little notches in the frame in order to get that out, like right there. Once you do that, you can get the motor out. We'll take it to the workbench. So when I first started looking at this, I thought, well, that's really odd. I really didn't know how that pin came out. So I decided to take it apart with some of the obvious things. And I actually started with this little cover. Remove these two little screws. They're small. You don't want to lose those. And I will usually have a magnet to attach these to, or something like this. Right, we'll just put those in there. Then I realized that doesn't come off. It's going underneath here. So I removed two screws on this housing cover, whatever you want to call it. Get those loose. And then this little piece of plastic, it lifts off. And then this part, you can see here, it engages over the switch. There's a little rectangular hole there. When you reassemble this, make sure you seat that over the little cog, that little rectangular cog over the switch. That goes on there, and you can see how that would activate that with everything in place. So remove that, set it aside. And now as I'm looking at this, I was able to see that there's a little discoloration there, like a different material, but obviously there's like a collar or a flange or something that houses this pin that has a spring inside, but it's the housing for all of this. There's no access to it from the back. Obviously this is all one piece, so there's nothing for that to come off to the side. And initially I thought I could remove this and maybe punch all of this out from the back end. So I ended up using an impact to pull that loose, but it didn't help, so don't do that. So ultimately what I was able to do is grab this with a pair of vice grips, and then I was able to insert a wrench here. Does that show up? Yeah. Put a wrench here and hit that with a hammer, and it's pretty tight, but I was able to work at it with screwdrivers from each side as well, and finally this entire thing slid out. And I already have this out. This is a new one. I didn't get it on video, but this is basically just pressed in. It's a press fit, so it's pretty tight, but it will come out. Once it came out, then I was able to replace it with a new one. Here's the one that snapped. And then you can see, like I said, I ended up ordering two of them. If it broke that easy, it could break again. And this, I think, ported cable is no longer around, so it might be hard to find one of these later. And there you can see the bad one, the broken one, and a new one. And of course I have a new one in here as well. But as I'm looking at this, I can see why it broke. First of all, the holes, there's one on each side of this collet, and the hole is quite large. It's much larger than the pin. Also a round bottomed hole, so that pin doesn't engage very positively. Right, so there's a lot of slack. In addition, there is a lot of space between the collar and where the pin engages and this pin housing. So that provides a lot of leverage, and of course that's going to snap. That should be a lot closer to reduce that, or at least mitigate that problem. You can see how far away it is. Anyway, that did the trick, got it out. So hopefully that'll help somebody out there. Now all I got to do is put all these covers back on, reassemble everything, and should be back in business. When I took the old one out, I just cleaned up that recess a little bit, and then I just had some little bushing of some sort, and I was able to fit this over the pin, this part of the pin, and it engaged with that little flange, and then I just hammered it in place. It's a press fit, but it does move. Oh, and incidentally, by no means do I find this to be a flaw in Pantorouters' design. This is really just the router they used. And I don't believe I over-tightened that to cause that to snap. I've been using routers for 40 years. I know how much tension or tightness to put on the nut of the collet, but it broke really easily, so something to be aware of, yeah. I know you guys saw that. Nobody said anything. This little variable speed wheel must have fallen off, and I didn't notice. Here we go. This guy looks like it has a couple of flats on it. Must go like that, or it could go like... Nope, only goes one way. There we go. Not too bad. That looks about right. Okay. Like I said, you don't need to take that off. I took it off because I didn't really know how everything came apart just yet. Used an impact. So just using an impact to put it back on. Of course, with the direction of the spin of the router, it can't come off. But it's on there tight enough now. Pin engages. So back in business. But yeah, really poor design with that big space in between the end of the pin and the collet. But anyway, it is what it is, yeah. So I'm going to put this back on and start panto routing. So check the description. I'll leave the part number, eReplacement parts, and also the router model number. To reinstall is pretty straightforward. It actually bottoms out. Going in, I had noted that this part of the bracket was, where it starts where this bevel is, but it actually stops right there. It bottoms out. Slight tightening of these screws, Allen screws. Probably doesn't need much. And then a little lock nut to hold it in place. I'll be more cautious when I'm tightening that, I know I didn't over tighten it. I'll say it again, it's a bad design. But anyway, good fix, yeah? So thank you tons for tuning in to another YouTube video. I certainly hope this helps somebody out there. I cannot be the only one that has snapped that little shaft. But anyway, yeah, thanks for watching.